The April qualifier to the Clash of Clans World Championship is happening this weekend from the 26th to the 27th of April. And in this video, we're going to be looking at the 8 teams who qualified to this tournament, who their players are, what strategies they play, and what we can expect from them in this tournament. And at the end, we're going to be making our predictions based on the tournament bracket. So let's not waste any time and get straight into it. Now let's look at the teams participating and the prize pool. And the teams are HTM Esports, Dizi, Synchronic, Tribe Gaming, Dizi Group, Navi, Elevate, and Vatic Esports. Now you might know some of these teams, you might not know some of them. Some of them are teams you knew in the past, but they changed their name over the winter. So we're going to be looking at them and telling you exactly who they are. And on the right, of course, you can see the prize pool, which is around $40,000 for this tournament. Also, in case you didn't know, after these big qualifiers, I share the bases from the winning team, so if you don't want to miss out on that video, make sure to stay subscribed to this channel. But now, let's look at our first team, HTM Esports. Now, you might have heard of some of the players from HTM Esports. They are Ghost, the captain, Crispy, Van, Spiz, and Max. And the base builders that we know of are mostly in the team, and Ged, who used to be a base builder for Millisime MG last year, who made it to the World Championship. And their favorite strategies are Seawalk into Root Riders, Fireball Root Riders, and or Seawalk into Dragons, which is pretty standard. But now, what is this team? Well, HTM Esports are a new team formed with some of the biggest underdogs from recent years. So you might have heard of some of their players playing in teams like Time to Throw or Almost Divorced, and they've reached pretty late stages in big tournaments, upsetting big teams, especially these players from HTM. Now, they started the hard mode meta on top form by consistently beating the best teams, as well as putting up really high scores, and their trajectory looks very similar to that of VM Legacy from last year. So if you remember VM Legacy, they were a new team formed with players from a bunch of different teams, but they were really talented and managed to take the second golden ticket. Now, in terms of HTM Esports, their lack of experience might hinder them from making it all the way, because these players are a little bit smaller. They're not as big and hugely experienced as some of the other teams, but they will surely give a fright and fight to any opponent they face. So HTM Esports do look like a really strong team, but we'll see how they end up doing since their players are a little bit less experienced. Now, the next team here we have is Dizi. And also I wanted to note to you guys that there are 4 teams in the upper bracket and 4 in the lower bracket. And we're going to be looking at the upper bracket teams first and later on the lower bracket teams. And of course you'll see the whole bracket at the end of the video with all the matches and predictions and everything. But first of all, with Dizi, their players are Fluxy, the captain, Synthe, Darkstar, Hawk, and Mask. And you might remember them as HTM Esports from last year. And the builders for Dizi are probably players within the team themselves, as they are super talented. But what strategies do Dizi play? Well, they play RC Walk into Root Riders and the same thing with the Dragons, just like every other team, but they're also known for a lot of creative fireball approaches, whether with rocket balloons, witches, even throwers and Root Riders as well. So we know the players of Dizi are very creative, like Synthe and Darkstar and even Mask. But now let's read a little bit more about them. Dizi brings together some of the most experienced players in Clash of Clans Esports. So these players, of course, have played in multiple world championships over the years and gotten really great results. Their players, have multiple world championships and are well known for their creativity and skill. They qualified to the final 8 with a storming 14-star victory against Basebuilding, making them a scary rival. So in the final match before they made it to the stage, they happened to beat Basebuilding with 14 stars, and it could have even been 15 if Fluxy didn't get a 96%, but that's still a really amazing result, especially against a really strong team. And even consider it, after all the matches they played that day, they still put up 14 stars. So they're super strong, and they will surely be aiming to reach the World Finals once again this year. So yeah, Dizi are really strong. In the World's warm-ups, they didn't do the greatest job, but they will be looking to bounce back in this qualifier and perhaps make it to the finals. Now, talking about a team who did do well in the World's warm-ups, which is the first proper esports tournament of each year, that was Synchronic, who happened to finish second place in that tournament. But first, let's look at their players. General X, the captain, Philip, Leo, Einstein, and Mark. So pretty much the same roster that won the World Championship last year, just with one exception of bringing Leo in, who was a super strong player who played for the Momentum Shifters last year. Now, their main builders, General X is known as perhaps the best builder in Clash of Clans esports, and I'm sure he has some help from lots of other great German base builders around him. Now, what strategies does Synchronic play? Well, they play the RC walk into dragons, which they were very well known for in the World's warm-ups, and also some nice fireball attacks, especially from Einstein, who's a really creative and smart player, just like his name, like fireball rocket balloons and fireball into super witches. Those fireball attacks are not common across all the teams because they're really difficult to execute in the horde mode meta, but Synchronic have really shown mastery over them. And I'm sure they probably play the RC walk into Root Riders, but I haven't really seen too many matches from them, so I'm not sure how much they will be bringing that in, but that would be cool if, a team could dominate without Root Riders. But now let's read about them. The world champions from last year are not slowing down this year. They finished second in the world's warm-ups and brought many unique attacking approaches with their usual defensive masterclass. Now currently they show no weaknesses and are looking to secure their spot in the 2025 World Championships. So Synchronic are known for always bringing something new to the table in big tournaments. They always show up in those big tournaments, and nothing really looks wrong with them so far, so I guess we'll have to see whether they can make it and win the first golden ticket. And the fourth team we have here in the upper bracket is going to be Tribe Gaming, and their players are Kronos, the captain, Nibrax, Rakires, and the two new additions, Picastro and Temper. Now their base builders, they have Stefan, Sir Iron, Mech, and Satans. And now let's look at their strategies, and we'll talk more about all their players in a little bit. Now their strategies, the RC walk into dragons, which Nebrax likes to play a lot, especially as he's the dragon expert for all these years. The RC walk into Root Riders, as it's a pretty classic strategy, and the fireball into rocket balloons, which Kronos and Picastro love to do because they're pretty good at these surgical attacks. Now with their 9-player roster, imagine 9 players to finally try to win the World Championship, Tribe Gaming want to finally win the World Finals in 2025. Their team consists of individual stars. So we saw they brought in Picastro, the greatest first attacker ever, and Temper as well, one of the greatest closing attackers in Clash of Clans esports. And the meta finally suits Nibrax again, because apparently all he plays is dragons, and this meta actually works with dragons. But Tribe's performance can greatly swing between days. I mean, some days they might be winning the golden ticket, others they might not even make it to the final 8 teams. Still, their best showings have always been under pressure. So when the pressure comes down and Tribe Gaming are in a pressure situation, they somehow seem to pull some extra performance out of the bag. Maybe they have lots of experience and they know how to stay calm in these situations. But whatever it is, Tribe Gaming do have a decent chance, especially being in the upper bracket. And now we have our first team in the lower bracket, Elevate. And originally when I recorded this, I forgot to record Elevate's part, but we cannot forget them for sure, the Brazilian team, the former world champions from 2023. Their players are the captain Celinio, and then Leo, Patalinho, Achilles, and Bernal. Now the base builders, well, all of the players in this team are base builders, so their bases are pretty good, and they have really strong defenses. Now what strategies do Elevate like to play? Well, we've seen them recently play a lot of RC walks with either the Root Riders or the Dragons. And that might seem pretty boring, but Elevate are perhaps one of the best teams in the world and bringing up really consistently high scores, 13 stars even, maybe even 14 at times, so they're super consistent with them. But now, Elevate started the hard mode meta as one of the most consistent teams with their incredible fireball rocket balloon attacks. Recently, those have disappeared. This is a mystery. I don't know if they're saving up some new or interesting approaches for the World Championship qualifiers. I guess we'll have to wait and see for that. But Elevate are still amazing with the classic RC walks, which is what they're playing at the moment. After missing out on last year's World Finals in perhaps one of the closest matches ever in the Last Chance qualifier against Tribe Gaming, the former world champions Elevate will surely be looking to secure their spot for this year. So Elevate definitely do not want to miss out on this year's World Championship. They are definitely one of the best teams in the world, and they will do their best to make sure that they can make it in this first qualifier. Now going to the lower bracket teams, we have Dizi Group. And their players are Denden, the captain, Ryuta, Kai, Chien, and Zikin. So mostly some players from Taiwan, which were known as X-Team in the past, but some new players like Ryuta, the great Japanese player, and Zikin, who played in the Momentum Shifters last year. Now their base builders, I don't really know much about them, so unknown. And their favorite strategies, I put that as RC Walk Root Riders. Many of their matches haven't been streamed, but I expect they play Dragons too. Now last year this Dizi Group team pretty much played all Root Riders in the speed meta, so they're known for just picking one strategy and sticking with it and doing a pretty good job with it. Now, in terms of Dizi Group are a very consistent team who have been to the World Championship once in 2022 under the name X Team, if you might remember. Now, unfortunately, they lack the final spark to consistently beat the best and usually repeat the same strategies with solid execution. Now, what do I mean with this? Well, usually they just play one strategy, but they're actually pretty good with it. But the problem with that is it's difficult to force one strategy onto every single base. Now maybe they do have a few variants and different strategies. Maybe Ryuta and Ziken, who are a little bit more creative, can come up with some different approaches, but we'll see. Although it should be noted that Dizi Group were one of the quickest teams to adapt to this hard mode meta at the start, and they were able to consistently score 12 stars right when hard mode came out, so they were pretty good with the Root Riders and approaches. But we'll see how they're going to do. Now coming from the lower bracket as well, one of the fan favorites and most creative teams, we have Navi. And their players, the same as ever, are Gaku the captain, Klaus, Tars, Kazuma, and Yata. And their base builders, Enden Smith from China and Japan, are also really great and have lots of experience over many years. Now, what strategies do Navi play? Well, they play the RC walk into the Root Riders like everyone else, but they also add a spin to it with the kill squad into Root Riders. So this is basically a similar RC walk approach where they go with the log launcher trick afterwards with the hero dive, which is kind of similar to how people used to play Zap Lalo in the olden days. Now, I don't think any of the other teams in this qualifier play this strategy really, so it's mainly unique to Navi and some of the Chinese teams who are also really good in it, but the Chinese teams unfortunately can't play in this qualifier because they have their own separate server and But the other strategy we have from Navi is the RC walk into Dragons. And I happened to make a whole video actually on this, explaining how Navi dominated the world's warm-ups with their RC walk into Dragon approaches, and that video was pretty good, breaking down all the separate parts of that attack. And now Navi also play the Fireball into Super Witches, which is also a slightly riskier attack, and not many people can really execute it well, besides perhaps Navi, Synchronic, and I think Vatic Esports might play it a little bit. But yeah, Fireball into Super Witches can also be really strong if you're very skilled with it. Now, the World's Warm-Ups champions, Navi, will not have the easiest job coming from the lower bracket, and especially seeing who their matchup's going to be, but we're going to be looking at the tournament bracket in a second. Now, still, they are known as the most creative team with some of the best players of all time, and amazing Legends League pushers who always finish #1 in the world, particularly stars. Now, they have experience, consistency, and skill, which will put them in with a great chance to take the first golden ticket. So that's it for Navi, and now into the final team, Vatic Esports. Now, I hope you're still here because we have one of the most interesting teams of this year, Vatic Esports. And their players, Kingsman the captain, Tryhard, Nuchoa, Simon, and Imran, also known as Hades. Now, their base builders, Byrock and Dark on top, which we will talk about in a bit. Now, what strategies do Vatic Esports play? Well, Vatic Esports are a pretty diverse team with their strategies, and they play the RC Walk into Root Riders, RC Walk into Dragons, but also some fireball attacks with the rocket balloons and super witches as well, which is not an easy strategy to play. Now, as you can see from the picture, playing from their boot camp in Paris, Vatic Esports are desperate to grab victory in the April qualifier. With experienced players, the best builders on defense, and in-person communication, Vatic has left nothing up to chance. Will it pay off? So of course, we can see Vatic Esports, they're mainly made up of the players from Millesime MG in last year's World Championship, but also adding Simon, who is the World Champion with Synchronic, and Imran, who is also one of the best closing attackers alongside Temper. And of course, they brought in some amazing base builders, Byrock and Dark on top, some of the best base builders in the world who are just specialized at base building and not really attacking in particular, but base building, they're amazing at it. Now, let's look into the tournament bracket and see what we think of all of these teams. And now we finally have the tournament bracket and we can make our predictions. Actually, since I recorded this video yesterday, today I found that two of the teams, Elevate and HTM Esports, actually got banned for some kind of account sharing thing or something like that. So that changed the bracket up a little bit. And instead of them, we have only Exceed and Team Electros, who we'll talk about in a little bit. Also, the other thing I found out is that the bracket's going to be a standard double elimination bracket. Even if teams lost a match earlier in the monthly qualifiers, they're still going to be able to lose twice in this qualifier. Originally, it showed something else on the tournament hub, but now Supercell changed it to this. So I guess this is going to be the final bracket, which you see on your screen over here. And let's start making our predictions. And the first match we have is going to be Dizi versus Only Exceed. And Only Exceed is of course one of the teams that just came in, and they're a pretty strong Japanese teams made of players like Hiroya, Nairome, Kazuma, Luka, Kazuma, not the Navi one, a different one, and as well as Invincible LG from Korea, who used to play with Vitang, and he's a pretty good player as well. Overall, Dizi is a pretty tough opponent for Only Exceed, but Only Exceed can put up 11 or 12 stars, so they'll be in with a decent shot, but overall the creativity of Dizi, the strength and experience of their players, might give them a little bit of an edge in this matchup. But still, over here, Hiroya plays with us over at 1 Legion, so we're definitely going to be supporting Only Exceed in this match to see whether they can manage to get the win. And the next match we have is going to be Navi versus Dizi Group. And as we said earlier, Dizi Group are a little bit on the weaker side from the teams in this tournament. They were pretty quick at adapting to this hard mode meta, but overall, I mean, coming up against a team like Navi is going to be a very difficult task for them. And we know how consistent Navi is both on offense and defense, and I think Navi should definitely have the edge in this matchup as well. Now next up we have Synchronic versus Team Electros. And if you haven't heard of Team Electros, they're this pretty good Spanish team as well with players like Almoalen, Diego, Eltano, Loop Zera, and a few other players as well. And overall, they're pretty good. Like, they do some creative stuff too. Like, Almoalen used to do these zap into Dragon Rider attacks. And maybe even some like Sui Lalo, like once or twice. But they can bring up some pretty creative plans. They finished 4th place in the world's warm-ups, while Synchronic finished 2nd. So overall, the matchup should lean a little bit more towards Synchronic, but Team Electros are in with a decent chance. But now the 4th match we have here is going to be Tribe Gaming versus Vatic Esports. And this is going to be a really close and intense match. But who do we think will have the upper hand? Well, of course, we know Tribe Gaming can have a super high potential, but they can be really inconsistent at times, and sometimes you see them really struggling in this hard mode. Sometimes they're just crushing, so it really depends on the day. But Vatic Esports, we know, playing from their boot camp in Paris, are really tryharding right now, working on the best bases they can, really polishing their attack strategies. And I think having this teamwork and in-person communication is really going to help them and more likely give them an edge over Tribe Gaming in this matchup. Now, how about later on in this tournament? Who can win the golden ticket? Well, potentially we could have Dizi versus Navi in the upper bracket semifinals. And who will have the upper hand here? Well, I think Navi, again, is more likely the better team. And Dizi, we know, flopped in the World's warm-ups. So again, if they have these consistency issues like Tribe Gaming, that might put them at a little bit of a disadvantage in the long run in this tournament. But Navi, we know, are pretty consistent, and they're definitely one of the favorites for this golden ticket. And then next up, in the other side of the bracket, we have potentially Synchronic versus Vatic Esports. And I think both of those teams are pretty evenly matched. Both of them are top-tier teams. They can triple consistently, which is why I think the 3 teams that are most likely to get the golden ticket are Navi, Synchronic, and Vatic Esports. Of course, there are other teams here. They're all super strong, and they could be in with a good shot if they just happen to turn up on the day. But overall, I think these 3 teams have been super consistent over the past few weeks, even community tournaments, bringing in very regular 3 stars. So that's it for this video. Comment down below which team you think will be winning the first golden ticket and who you will be supporting in this tournament. I hope you enjoyed this. Thanks a lot, and bye-bye.